The early 2000s were something of a weird era for animated movies. Yeah, we got a lot of the obvious big hits from big names like Disney and Pixar, but I'm not referring to those. A lot of the weird and experimental stuff came out to very little or no clamor at all. They'd show up, flop at the box office and fade into obscurity, only for them to suddenly be remembered again nearly 2 decades later and become cult classics. Flushed away, open season, hoodwinked, those are just a few that I consider to be masterpieces. A lot of these movies I'd grown up watching over and over again, and a lot of them I thought I had made up in my silly little brain. So imagine my surprise when I found out that an animated movie about a silly little pigeon joining the army to partake in World War II to fight coded falcons was in fact a very real thing that actually happened. Yup, this is Valiant. Surprisingly enough, a lot of you remember this movie too. Coming out in 2005, Valiant is an animated film produced by Vanguard Animation, the same studio behind great hits like Happily Never After, No Malone, right? Anyone remember No Malone? Oh yeah, and Space Chimps. Gotta love Space Chimps. You know, the movie about chimps in space. Yeah. The film was also made in collaboration with Ailing Studio, a studio I have never really heard of up until this film, but turns out they were behind Shaun of the Dead, which I guess is pretty cool. They do have a ton of other films under their belt too though. The movie boasts a lot of great voice talents like Ewan McGregor, who voices the main character Valiant himself. Then there's Ricky Gervais, Tim Curry, to name a few. Thanks to this, the voice acting of the film is pretty solid all around. I'm willing to bet this is where most of the film's budget of $35 million went into. For a movie of this caliber, it's actually a pretty good movie. Set in 1944 during the Second World War and inspired by very real events, the movie follows Valiant, a small little pigeon who dreams of serving in the army as a carrier pigeon, flying behind the dangerous enemy lines to deliver important messages across to the troops fighting. Valiant wants to serve his country, but everyone else thinks he can't because he's a tiny little guy. Yeah, there is a small dick joke in there. He's been inspired by the famous Wing Commander Gutsy, who is one of the most recognized carrier birds around. It's then he finds out sign-ups to join their cause begin tomorrow, so with nothing but excitement and courage under his wings, he makes his way there. In London, he meets Bugsy, an absolutely filthy bird, and they get into some trouble with some crows. In an attempt to get away from them, Bugsy signs up for the program too, but he's not exactly patriotic enough to go all the way. They meet several other birds, all of whom don't really matter because they don't really do much throughout the movie. On the other side of things, we get a look at the bad guys, falcons serving under definitely not Germany. Their leader had caught on of the carrier pigeons at the start of the movie and has brought him back to wring some information out of him. They're going to torture him. Unfortunately, this is a kids movie, so they just play some of that yodeling music to drive him crazy. Honestly, the first part of the movie doesn't really have anything going for it. Once our protag joins the military training camp, it's just a series of fluff stuff. Valiant does meet a dove who runs the infirmary, and she is very defined for a bird. Over the course of their training montage, Valiant and the dove, whose name is Victoria by the way, get closer and fall in love. Training is cut short when the situations have taken a turn for the worse, and so the current squad will have to head to the front lines immediately. Now I guess this is where the movie really takes off. Just before the 9-day ship out, Bugsy tries to escape. He and Valiant have what I think is the best conversation in the film and really shows where the heart of it is in. Bugsy is honestly scared of the battlefield. He didn't ask for this war, he didn't start it, so why is he going to risk his life for it? The planes, the bombs, they didn't make those, so why should they have any part in it? He wants to go back to the life he used to have. These are very real thoughts and fears. These are feelings that are very valid. And Valiant's response is just as good too. He's just as scared as Bugsy. They didn't make the homes they live in, the land they soar through, but if he doesn't do his part and they start dropping bombs over there, what's going to happen next? He wants to do his part. He wants to try and make things better for everyone. They don't really disapprove the others' feelings as they are just as valid. And so, Bugsy flies off. But then he comes back in the next scene, so it's all good I guess. It's the day of the mission and they are all off. It doesn't take too long before disaster strikes. Their plane is immediately attacked, so they all have to make an emergency exit, but Wing Commander Gutsy stays behind. Why? To dislodge one of their shipment boxes. I find this dumb because there is nothing inside the box, so there really is no point for him to do it all. He could have easily squeezed in with Valiant, but nope, and now he's dead. But I guess this is to create tension and have the rookies be on their own for the rest of the movie. They make a safe landing, meet up with some mice, part of the resistance, the lady mouse who is very defined for a mouse. And I'm sure we already know what fan art of her would look like. They make their way to the next location where they have to pick up a secret message that'll shift the tides of war, which is after they get into a chase scene with some of the enemy falcons. They give the message to Bugsy, and the chase continues, but unfortunately Bugsy gets caught and is taken into the bad guy lair. Turns out Gutsy is alive and they all devise a way to get into the lair. The only way in, through an opening in the cannon's barrel that is a bit too small for all the other birds to get through. Now this looks like a job for our hero. Okay, but side note, this is just an attempt to make our main character go at it alone. Because the barrel is big enough for all of them to go into, and the lid that gave them the opening could easily be pushed aside if they all pushed it together, which is something that they actually do later in the movie. It just creates more unnecessary tension. So Valiant gets in, they rescue the other pigeon from before, as well as get the secret message back. And now the climax of the movie begins. Big bad Nazi bird gives chase to Valiant, and this is the chase that happens all the way from France to London? Like they fly through the open sea and way past the previous locations at the start of the movie, with the chase ending at Valiant's house, where he's able to use his wits and trap the falcon. Yeah, it's pretty anticlimactic. But then he flies all the way back to the military training camp to deliver the message, which then reaches the humans and so readjust their plans. And so the movie ends with all of them getting medals. The highest medal any animal could get, the Dickin medal. Dicking medal. I've got a Dicking medal too. They throw a party for all the birds, everyone gets babes, the movie closes with Valiant and the medic dove kissing. How would birds even kiss? That's gotta be uncomfortable somehow. Valiant is a movie that weirdly enough still holds up. It's not a bad movie, but it's not exactly a great movie too. It's really fast paced and leaves a lot to be desired, but still makes for a pretty decent watch. It has a certain charm to it that I can't really explain. Maybe that's from the nostalgia talking, but my little child brain was able to stay entertained throughout the film. And it had its moments that were actually pretty funny, getting a few chuckles out of me. Visually, the movie was really well done considering it was made by a small team. The budget constraints really did show, with the feathers of the birds looking kind of weird sometimes. Many of the scenes had varying degrees of quality. Sometimes the lighting would darken the faces of some of the characters, and sometimes it looked really good with this nice bloom effect which was present when there was like a defined light source. But I think the weirdest part about this would be the climax. Maybe they really were struggling with a budget, but I don't see any logical reason why the chase would go to previous locations and end where the film started in. It really warps the perception of space and time the film was trying to establish, because if the birds could really fly all the way to France, then there was no real reason for them to be put on a plane in the first place. The plane that exclusively carried only them. That's just bad war tactics. But yeah, the climax would have been a lot more satisfying if it happened at more of the darker set pieces. But then again, this is a movie geared towards kids, so I guess it makes sense. This ain't no Watership Down out there traumatizing generations. But that's it for this video. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe, as well as let me know what you think about Valiant in the comments below. This has been your very favorite slice of bread. Stay toasty.